What's poppin', everybody? This is Ray Rawlins from the Ray Rawlins Network, and I'm joined by Mr. Alex Pain. Today, we're getting a little classic on your head top, reviewing a classic episode of SpongeBob. Actually, the first episode of SpongeBob called Help Wanted. Now, classic SpongeBob fans know what this episode is all about, but for those who don't, we got Mr. Alex Pain here to give you the episode breakdown. So, what happens in the episode, Mr. Alex Pain?
Well, as you said, this is the first episode, so this episode shows how SpongeBob got his job at the Krusty Krab. So it starts off with him, expressing to Gary and Patrick how he always wanted to work at the Krusty Krab. And when he goes there for the interview, Squidward, talks to Mr. Krabs and gets him to shoo SpongeBob away. So Mr. Krabs gives him a fake errand, something that he doesn't think he'll ever get. And, SpongeBob leaves, and then what would you call them?
A swarm of anchovies came and attacked the Krusty Krab.
And pretty much, that's pretty much how it happened. Like it was like 4 or 5 buses came, and a swarm of anchovies filled up the restaurant, and SpongeBob had to come and save the day. So that's pretty much the episode.
SpongeBob came and filled all their bellies up with Krabby Patties, and like a true boss, he came in there, vroom, started firing Krabby Patties at their ass, man. SpongeBob was not playing with that.
Right, he was shooting it right in their mouth like
I can't even say it, hydrodynamic spatula with port and starboard attachments and turbo drive. Okay, he was not playing. What are your first initial thoughts? Actually, you know what? I'll even speak on this. Mm-hmm. This was my first episode. Like, this is the pilot, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to say, when I started watching SpongeBob for the first time, my brothers and sisters got me into this. I really want to say this was the first episode of SpongeBob I watched. It was either this one or it was the Krusty Krab training video. I want to say it was that one. Or the Wet Painters one where SpongeBob and Patrick go to paint Mr. Krabs' house. It was one of those three. I'm leaning more towards the Mr. Krabs' house.
I don't see how you would possibly be able to remember which one you watched first, though. I mean,
I'll be honest.
Memory, but I don't think that, I don't know.
I was like maybe 9, but SpongeBob was the series that like really started my love for cartoons, and that's the honest to God truth. And I thank my brother and sister a lot for getting me into that. Like, SpongeBob is everything in my life, man. That's 100% the truth. But what are your first thoughts on this episode, man?
My first thoughts when rewatching this episode, because obviously it's not my first initial thoughts of it ever, but
right, it's,
obviously. Because I don't think I've ever heard anyone mention this, but I'm sure someone has somewhere. But it's weird to hear how different SpongeBob's voice was back then.
Yo, stop. Because when I was listening to it, too, I was watching it yesterday. I'm like, yo, SpongeBob's voice sounds different. It sounds more, I don't want to say humanistic, but it definitely doesn't sound like the one we hear today.
I think it sounds a little deeper, is the honest.
It does, don't it? Like, that's what I mean. It sounds more manly-ish, which is odd. Like, I mean, it's not odd. But going from, because I watched these 2 episodes back to back, the one we watched for our Monday review, the breaking one, and then I watched this one. So going from that voice to this, it's like, whoa, what happened? Like, did SpongeBob like grow balls in the past, and we just went to the field? I don't know what happened here.
I think maybe
SpongeBob had balls in season 1 and lost them by season 13. What the fuck?
I think the only explanation is because obviously it's probably going to change over time. It's not going to say exactly. But I think if it is anything, because remember, SpongeBob had a low budget, so and plus that was back in the well, I can't even say that. I can't even say that because there's a lot of cartoons from the 90s and whatever, even earlier that has better quality audio. But I think it was just low budget, so. Maybe it was the mic was more cheap or something, and maybe that's how come it sounded different.
Right. Listen, all I gotta say is Tom Kenny's the GOAT. If he wasn't SpongeBob, then I probably wouldn't give 2 shits about him. But Tom Kenny, just because you're SpongeBob, you get Homie of the Week for that one. let's get on to favorite moments. I know what you're gonna say, and I'm gonna steal it from you. I want my mommy, Mr. Squidward. Listen, when those anchovies attack, and they were straight up bombarding that Krusty Krab, they were tossing Mr. Krabs and Squidward all over that place. Mr. Krabs being the boss, he's supposed to be all macho and tough. You know, he's supposed to take command of the ship. Okay. For a crab who's been in the Navy, right? This motherfucker clammed up, holding on to Squidward. Oh, Mr. Krabs! And we're taking on water, Mr. Squidward. I want mommy, Mr. Squidward. Listen, those anchovies weren't playing. They had Mr. Krabs shitting his shell. Okay, that's and SpongeBob came in and just saved the day. And Mr. Krabs is just like, oh, he thanked them with a job, man. He thanked them with a job, which in a couple seasons, up to season 13, we find out he's not getting any breaks. He can't even get a damn 5-minute break. He's got to wait 20 years to get a 5-minute break. But you know what? That's my main favorite moment out of that episode, honestly. I noticed this too. I noticed this when he was writing down, you know, the whole assignment for Mr. Krabs. He was writing with his left hand. So shout out to SpongeBob, man. He's left-handed, just like Ray Rawlins. Actually, he's ambidextrous. We find that out in the next couple seasons. But listen, he's writing with his left hand, which is dope. I don't see too many people do that. But you got any other favorite moments from that episode, or are you ready to roll into final review?
Well, obviously the I want my mommy, Mr. Squidward thing is the funniest. I really enjoy like the whole him making the Krabby Patty scene, even though you could argue how the hell does he know how to make a Krabby Patty if he isn't even hired. And
exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
I love that whole scene though. Like I like the music and everything goes with it, whatever. But one thing I want to mention though, since you're mentioning like aesthetics, like with the left hand and everything, it's weird to see how like SpongeBob's bed is in the wrong position in the first episode. Well, I guess technically since that's the first episode, that's probably the right position, but because his bed is like turned the other way from his clock instead of turned next to it like it is now, and even in the next few episodes, I would say.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that. I swear to you, I did not pay attention to that.
Yeah, like
I missed that completely.
So instead of it being like on to the left of the clock, it's like it's like over some and turned the other way. So like now he's facing.
His clock is kind of like at the foot of the bed, and the clock's facing him.
No, the clock is at the foot of the bed.
Watch that again.
The clock is at the foot of the bed, and it's facing like the other direction from his legs. I don't know how to describe it.
That's interesting. I need to see that. I did not notice that.
Yeah. Bed was in the wrong position.
All right. Well, let's get into final reviews. I'm gonna go first with this one. Considering this being a pilot, you can argue the fact how does he know how to make a Krabby Patty? Because I thought the same thing when he was making. I'm like, yo, he doesn't even know the secret formula. And then obviously we see the Krusty Krab training video after that. Like, why do you need to show him how to make a Krabby Patty? He obviously knew how to make one in episode 1 where he went to apply for the job. So, I don't know. I mean, you know, you could argue all that, but that's just nitpicking and whatnot. And thanks for the burp. That's awesome.
You're welcome.
But to be honest with you, I think this episode was pretty darn good. I enjoyed it. This was one of the first episodes I do remember watching on Nickelodeon. One of my brothers and sisters introduced me to this. Immediately, you know who the characters are. You know who SpongeBob is. He introduces Snail Gary. You know who his main sidekick Patrick is, the pink starfish. Everybody knows who Patrick is. Even Squidward, Mr. Krabs, they do a good job at introducing the characters, showing us what they do, what their jobs are, and you can put together the rest on your own, even being a kid. I know I did. So for that being the pilot episode, and if you were just watching this series for the first time, you have a good introduction to the entire series and who SpongeBob is, and that for itself as a storyline setup, as a series introduction which is what the pilot's supposed to be, that gets major points for me. So I'll give this one an easy 7.5 out of 10.
That's funny. I thought after all of that, you would have given it like a 9.
Really? No, I kind of want to go a little higher, honestly.
No, but this is the thing,
I'll say 8.5. Screw it. I'll say 8.5 because I don't want to be too biased.
I honestly don't think that's. I really don't think that's an 8.5 episode. I think that's more. I think you were right the first time. I just didn't expect you to give it that.
Really? All right. Yeah, you're right. 7.5 is good. 7.5.
I think I'll go with a 7. I think I'll go with a flat 7. So I think the episode was good and it had a really funny moments, but I don't think there was nothing ungodly. Like I think if you watch the episode casually, you wouldn't feel the need to continue the whole series. Like I think it's funny, and you might like if you catch another episode on, you would see. At least in my opinion, and obviously we're going off of people. Like in the two of us who've seen the episode probably at a bare minimum 20 times. So obviously we're going to lose a lot of the jokes that other people would see from watching it the first time or, this, that, or the other. So as a person who's probably seen the episode 1,000,001 times, I'm going to give it a 7. Because that's just how I view the quality of the episode right now, a 7.
All right. Which is interesting. Like, I'm going to stick with 7.5 for my rating, which, I've seen it a bunch of times too. I've seen it I definitely seen it more than 20 times. Man, I really do wonder how many times I've seen it. But
yeah, because when you think about it, like, at least for me, and at least right now, I don't know about before. I mean, granted, how many times it makes you laugh isn't necessarily the criteria to go off of. But it's considered a comedy. But, like, I would say the only real joke in that, at least to me, is the I Want My Mommy, Mr. Squidward one. There's a lot of little jokes, but, like, that's the only roller. That's the only roller.
But you gotta think of it in the mind of a kid, though. We're grown men watching, reminiscing about SpongeBob. So, of course, jokes are gonna... And I think you personally are a very hard person to get to laugh, too. At a comedy show, I picture your ass just sitting there just looking mad as hell. I wasted my money on this shit. So I don't think
you're definitely right. No, but I think
it's just the enjoyableness of the series. Like if we're two kids and giving this a rating, we'll probably say 9 out of 10.
I don't think so because this series in general, maybe not so much. I guess probably it's changed recently, but like they don't cater to kids' jokes. Like that I Want My Mommy, Mr. Squidward, that's not a kid's joke. Not because it sounds adult, but just because like a kid wouldn't understand why that's funny. So like, I think the joke, all of the jokes are like kind of I wouldn't say adult based, but they're like universal in who could find it funny.
Right.
So I don't think like you would have to be a kid to understand it. So yeah.
All right. Well, either way, I think we both were pretty good on our ratings. Like I say 7.5, you say 7. Pretty even on that. A nice good C. Like I said, this is a very decent introduction episode to the series, getting you introduced to the characters, why SpongeBob became a fry cook, in a sense, how he became a fry cook. So, I think it's pretty good. Long story short, but with all that being said, this is the classic SpongeBob review from Alex Pain and Ray Rawlins. We will see you next week as we do some more SpongeBob reviews, and we got big Halloween plans coming up for the Ray Rawlins Network. We talk cartoons, and we do it practically daily. But with all that being said, we will see ya when we see ya. Peace.